Well, good morning, good evening, everyone. Glad that you all were able to join us today for the Dark Moon message. As you can see, I am not Katrina Messenger. I am Angela Raincatcher, and I'm the convener for Connect DC. And tonight, I'm going to be leading us in our contemplation this evening. And I wanted to start off by just talking a little bit about the moon and why the moon is so important to, as a marker, not just for the Witches Month, but for all of us. The moon is one of those heavenly bodies that we see in the sky, very close with the unaided eye, and we can see it move through the cycles of waxing, full, waning, dark to crescent all over the world. We don't need any special tools. We don't need a telescope. We just need to be able to look up in the sky. And we can see that this change in the cycle, as the cycle moves, that it's a very regular cycle. And the cycle moves through the months of the year. And I'm also taken to, thinking about the moon as representative of the Kabbalistic sphere of Yesod. And in Hermetic Kabbalicism, Yesod is the sphere of the astral, the sphere of illusion, the treasure house of images. It is a place where we can imagine things, where we can picture things in our head, and we do this all the time, all of us. We can, close our eyes and we can imagine what the day might be like. We can picture ourselves in different scenarios, doing different things. We can test out different realities. So the realm of Yesod, the realm of the moon, is very important for us as we're doing any kind of magic, especially any kind of magic where we want to manifest something in the physical. Because we really cannot manifest something unless we can first imagine it. We can't create something until we can first picture in our heads. Now, what we picture in our heads, what we imagine in the sphere of the moon, may end up looking very different than what it ends up looking like in the earth realm. Because in the sphere of the moon, in the sphere of Yesod, all things are possible. Like, we could imagine ourselves dashing, faster than the speed of light at the lunar realm. But on the earth plane, we have to play by physical laws of nature. Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to run faster than the speed of light. There's really no way I'm going to be able to run faster than pretty much anybody that I know personally. So I have to obey those physical rules. But if I am going to do something, I have to be able to imagine what that might look like. And you might be asking yourself, Angela, why are you talking about imagination right now? Why are you talking about, picturing things in your head? And the reason that I'm doing that is because I've been thinking a lot lately about all the things that have been happening in the world, and especially in the United States. We think about our rights being stolen from us, our reproductive rights being stolen from us, and how there are so many people who are wanting to use that as then an excuse to steal the rights away from anybody who has been marginalized, LGBTQ plus people, Black and brown people, people of different religions. I've been thinking about, the horrific gun violence that we've seen in this country. I've been thinking a lot about the poverty that runs rampant in our country. And it is very easy for us to see everything that's wrong in the world and to get stuck and to go like nothing can be done, nothing can change. And I have to believe that that's not true. But it's not enough to think, oh, things can change. Oh, it doesn't have to be this way. I have to be able to imagine what might it look like? What could a different world look like? What could, starting from where I am, where could we go figuratively? We're not going to another country. I'm not talking about, running away to Australia here or New Zealand. I'm talking about where could we as a people, as a nation, as a country, where could we go as a civilization? Where could we go to create the world where everybody is cared for, where everybody is allowed to live fully, authentically, securely? What could that look like? I have to be able to imagine that in order for me to even know where to even take the first step. And that is the magic of the new moon. That ability to look at the next month, the next week, the next day, the next moment. The ability to look forward and say, there's where I want to go. There is where I want my family to go, my neighborhood, my town, my city, my state, my country. This is where I want us as a people to go. This is where I want the earth to go. And then being able to visualize and put energy to that. And when I say visualize, that's just a fancy way of saying imagine, and put energy into that. Now, I'm not talking about escaping into the kind of fantasy that um, distracts us or disconnects us from the world we live in. I'm not talking about numbing ourselves to the realities that we live in and that we live under. But we have to be able to imagine a better future. And how do we do that? How do we imagine that? And how do we move forward on the path to do that? Well, I can share with you some of the ways that I do. There's this is where the role of the artist comes in, because there are artists out there, visual artists, writers, musicians, people who create media, TV, movies, plays, theater. All of these artists are imagining different scenarios. They're imagining different worlds and they're putting them in front of us. They're saying, these are the things that I see as possibilities. So personally, for me, I've stopped watching things that are focused on, an apocalyptic dystopian future, because frankly, I feel like we're living in that right now. I don't need media to tell me that we're on the path to the Handmaid's Tale. I just have to watch the news. And I'm not dogging on that. I'm just saying, some people need to see that to be awakened to it, and others of us don't. So I do take in media, I take in books, science fiction books, especially by authors and artists of color, women artists, um, non-binary artists, trans artists, artists who have been marginalized. Their voices have been shunted to the side. Take them in. See what kinds of worlds they're imagining, what kinds of worlds they're building, and then pulling from that. Oh, I love how they deal with uh, issues around poverty and around grief. And I love how this artist over here is visualizing how people can be fed. And they spark ideas in our minds that we can then use in our own imaginings and in our own magic. And sometimes those imaginings will lead us to our life's work. They'll lead us to trying something new. I might read a book about a land where trees are held as sacred beings in community with people. And that leads me to want to participate in an organization that plants more trees, especially more trees in places where trees are desperately needed, in the inner city where there are heat islands. So in that way, it's like the imagination spurs me to actually do something concrete in the world. And that is, I think, to me, is a real form of kind of that everyday magic. And I'm not talking about, there's different types of magic. I'm talking about that lived experience where we're in touch with the flow of energy around us and we work with it. And so what I would like for us to do this evening in this night of the new moon is just to take a few moments. I'm going to encourage you at home that if you have a journal, if you have just even a piece of paper or a notebook, or if you're on your computer if you're watching this, right? Or you may be on your phone. I don't know. But take a moment and just jot a few ideas down. What are things that are really... Start off with this. What are some challenges, some obstacles, some things that are really riling you up? And ask yourself, where have I seen those? Where have I read those or seen them in a movie or heard about it in a song or a story? Another way, a way that we haven't tried yet, or a way that I haven't tried yet. What are some alternate ways of dealing with this? I just recently read a series of books by an author named Becky Chambers. And I highly recommend her. I love her, by the way. A friend of mine recommended her to me. And I think it was the third book that she wrote in this series. And now, of course, I'm completely forgetting the name of the book. But the first book was A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. So look that up. Look up Becky Chambers and find the third book. And in the third book, the focus of the book is on human civilization far in the future where we have left Earth. We are not the most powerful species in the galaxy, not by a long shot. But what she delves into is how human society and human relationships have changed, and some ways that they haven't changed at all, as we've had to survive on a fleet of interstellar ships with no end in sight. And there were just some things in there that were so intriguing and could actually be used here on Earth, that I think would actually keep us from some of the disasters that we're seeing, some of the crises that we're seeing uh, playing out. And that's the kind of artistic works. Because to me, the artists are our vision keepers, as I learned from Katrina. Artists are the vision keepers. They're the ones that have that long sight and are able to say, I don't see what's past that mountain, but I can imagine what's past that mountain, and I can imagine how we climb, go around it. And it's that kind of long sight and that imagination that moves us from point A to the other side of the mountain. I think another author that I would recommend, although you know uh, some aspects of it are very bleak, is Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents. And there are aspects of that 20 years after I read it, still are very moving. And so, if that's not an author that you're familiar with, I highly recommend her as well. But seek out those voices and those talents of artists who, frankly, are not straight white men, you know, and read them, look at them, think about what are what are the imaginations and the visualizations of what the world could be, that actually leads us to something that is more just, more equitable, more healthy for all of us. And use your own imagination. Use your own imagination to imagine that better world. And then take it a step farther. Take it a step farther to what is one thing? What is one thing that you can do this week, this month, that will move you one step closer to that imagined world, to that future that you want to see in this world? It could be something as simple as, well, it's not simple. I'll say mundane. It could be something really mundane, like I've got some big bills coming up and I need to pay. How can I do that? And you can imagine all sorts of things. I know I have imagined all sorts of things that I could do. But it's in the power of imagining and then saying, okay, what is one thing that I can do right here, right now, that'll get us closer? If it's gun violence, it is lighting a fire under your butt. If it's the loss of reproductive rights, and I don't want to say loss, the stealing of rights that's lighting that fire. If it's that children are going hungry, if it's immigration rights, whatever it is that's lighting a fire under your butt, you have to first imagine, where do I want to go? And then in this new moon, one thing that I can do to move towards that future that I want to manifest. And if there's one thing that we as witches can do like nobody else, it is manifest. Manifest on this earth, right here, right now, a more just and equitable, healthy, and beautiful earth and life for our communities. And I think that is my message for you this evening. Go out, do your imaginations. One small step. One small step. And know that I love you. I believe in you. Blessed be.